Puneet, welcome to our live show today.
Hi, Mohit.
Thank you so much for joining us. And
It's a pleasure.
so we'll just cut straight to the budget because everyone is now talking about
Yep.
it. And definitely, what was your favorite highlight from the budget? Whatever you felt like was the best part.
I think it's the focus on AI that the Honorable Minister spoke about,
Yeah.
and the setting up of the three AI mission for education. And that, in my mind, is very fundamental because look, if you see what's happening in the AI world, there's a lot of infrastructure that's being built,
Yeah.
and what the industry is saying is that there have not been as many use cases as they would have liked to see. So as
Yes.
the infra gets built up and not enough use cases, hopefully this AI mission will serve to bring innovation in different verticals with the industry, and we should really see a ramp up in the whole AI world.
Yeah. So do you think the investment and the amount of funds that are announced, are they going to be enough when it comes to building these services and all these models when it comes to taking AI from India to the global world?
See, if you look at AI, it's the latest or the most trendy innovation that's happened in the last few years, right?
Yeah.
Now, something like this will always come from an ecosystem. It's never about one part of the ecosystem. So there's government, there is startups, there is industry, there's academia,
Yeah.
all of it. And I don't think so. The ownership is on the government to go build this because a whole lot of the innovation is happening across the world with the private players. I think what the government is trying to do is to create an environment and a platform where people can leverage and go build it.
Yeah.
Now, there is a whole lot of tech happening around the world. And in my mind, India is not going to be behind any one of them. In fact, India is going to lead this story given the IT skill force that we have.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't think about it whether it's enough or not. I would think it's a good step and it's creating the right environment and the platform for folks to do what they need to do.
Definitely. And I think India AI mission and the focus that was there, even
Yeah.
yesterday when President Draupadi Murmu also mentioned India AI mission and we are going to go global. So
Yes.
even in the economic survey report that
Mm.
came out yesterday, they were talking about all that 50% of the funds are coming from the government and 41% from the private sector and 9% are from the institutes. I mean the allocated funds. So do you think that change was visible when the budget was announced? Or does the private investment need to increase as well?
I think the private investment, in my view, is right in there. Right now the jury will always be out that whether it's enough or not. But think of it like this: with AI being so much talked about in last 2 3 years, the amount of effort that's going on in reskilling,
Yeah,
right? The amount of effort that is happening in building up infrastructure, right? In fact, there are folks who are saying we are building infrastructure, but the uptake is not as fast as it should be.
yeah,
And which
definitely.
goes back to the AI mission which got announced in the budget, which should really impact the use cases. Now you add to all of this the stuff that's happening on the fellowships in IITs, the fund for startups, right? If you add all of this together, then it's an environment for innovation and to do more.
Yeah,
So, yeah, so in my mind, it's not about whether the investment is there. I think people are making fair amount of investment. It's about how fast the use cases and the uptake, happens.
yeah, definitely. And I think you rightly mentioned with the funds of funds as well. So
Yeah.
how do you think so coming to the GCC part, because that was also a very big focus this time as well. So do you think that funds of funds is going to help India position itself even much better? Right now it already is like one of the most attractive place for companies setting up GCCs. Do you think that is going to take it a step further now?
So, Mohit, if you look at what's happened in India in the last almost 15 20 years, the amount of private equity investment that's flown into India has been massive. So it is not that India has been short of the private equity investment. There are so many startups which have become the unicorns or have done so well.
Yeah,
Sometimes the government just needs to come in to be the catalyst for everybody else to kind of come together, and hopefully this fund of funds will do that. It's not like that the fund of funds is going to be the only private equity investment. I mean, India's not short of it, but it will kind of nudge people to be in that direction. And There'll be some startups who could be struggling, which could really, kind of benefit from this.
Definitely. And what do you think it is in it for GCCs as well? So the tier two cities are going to take a lot of this funds, and that is going to be a focus as well. So do you think, and coupling that with the fact that the salary slab, sorry, the income tax slab has also been increased till 12 lakhs, so there will be no tax till then. So do you think people who are new joinees that are joining in the smaller tier two cities, they're going to benefit a lot from that because they'll be able to spend that money and the GDP will also get affected because of
Yeah.
that?
So look, so there are two parts to the question. Let me go one by one. If you look at the GCC story in India, which really started sometime in early 2000s, right? That's when the first uptake started happening. It's been almost now close to 23, 24 years. The GCC world is very centered between Bangalore, Hyderabad, Pune, right? Couple of other cities. And that's where your concentration of skilled people is there.
Yeah,
I think the broad basing of GCCs to tier two cities will be really a very welcome step. It will allow a lot more people in India to kind of come on board. People don't need to kind of migrate cities, or it will also ease some of the pressure on these cities. So
yeah,
clearly there will be a lot more people who will get associated. Now, with that background, I think this whole story on income tax obviously is very welcome. One, it will drive a lot of what they call consumption-driven economy,
yeah.
and second is that as these folks come into the GCC bandwagon, and with the taxation level, what it's just going to spur the economy to the next level.
Definitely. Yeah, that's what I was thinking as well. So do you? So I come from a smaller town as well. I'm from Jabalpur. So I was thinking if a lot of GCCs come in there as well, that would be a great opportunity for the people who are living there, and couple that with the income tax of I mean, it's going to be great. So, what do you think about all these? Which city do you think is going to get the most benefit when it comes to tier two cities? Like Karnataka right now is one of the most favorite state for any MNC coming into India. Do you think Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, they're also rising up very fast? Do you think they're also going to take a lot from this, like the cake, slice of the cake?
No, if you look at it, Hyderabad already is one of the very prominent ones for GCCs. So is Pune. So there are a few that are already there. I think a
Yeah,
lot of the state capitals will get very active, and because look, you've got a very employable population there. It's a very young population. It's an educated population,
yeah,
and it's just about for those folks to have the right opportunities. So a whole lot of state capitals across India should really mushroom. Now a lot will depend on how the state governments pick this up, and in a way it can become a little competitive between the state governments as well. And I think
yeah,
the government has opened it up to everybody. So the ones who will be faster at it are the ones who will take larger advantage. Also, I think some of the metros may not go as much because you don't have as much real estate there.
yeah.
But a whole lot of other towns can, really go and pick it up.
Definitely. And yeah. I think the angel tax, the abolishment of the angel tax is also going to benefit this as well a lot.
It
So,
will.
what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think that's one of the most amazing things in the budget because uh, there are a whole lot of startups who kind of go in early and then they are struggling with this whole taxation story, especially the way stock options and equity and all of that stuff works. And as people onboard new people, you know there are folks who really get troubled with the whole taxation story. I
Yeah,
think I think with the angel tax going, it will really be a big boost for innovation and the startups.
definitely. And so this also comes with the fact that we, as Indians, or the people who are working in companies as well, they also have to upskill a lot faster. So for
Mhm.
that, the government has also announced a lot of center of excellence as well and upskilling initiatives. So
Yes.
but do you feel that the funds are enough, or do you think the initiatives are enough when it comes to upskilling such a large pool of talent that we have?
So, Mohit, I mean, at least from what I understood in the budget, the skilling program of the government was not just for IT sector, what was pretty broad-based,
Yeah,
including folks in IT. Now,
yeah,
in the IT world, reskilling is a survival issue. It's a necessity. It's not an option.
Yeah,
and the folks who will not skill will obviously face a very hard time, going forward. But
yeah,
what the government is doing is by announcing this initiative, it is offering an opportunity for a lot of the youth to get skilled depending on what their interest is. And a whole lot of folks in the IT world, if they are struggling to get reskilled or if they are under pressure on their day-to-day jobs and still want to go do something, hopefully it
yeah.
will also give them an environment to go stuff. So my view is it's a lot more broad-based. What the IT guys need to do, they anyway need to do. Right?
Yeah, definitely. And I think this also, so when it comes to this investment and all these budgets, so in the economic survey report, there was a lot of mention of AI. I think it was mentioned 260 times at least. But when it comes to the budget, there was not much about it. Only R&D, R&D, and it's not much about AI specifically. So that was one thing that I thought that could have been included in the budget as well. What are your thoughts on it? Do you think all this R&D investment that we're going to focus on a lot more? And the 1000 crore investment as well, that is also for the course of 5 years.
Yes.
And the meantime, US is like $500 billion Stargate project.
Yeah.
So do you think we are running in the right track when it comes to this?
So Mohit, the question to think is, what role do we want the government to play in the whole AI story?
Okay.
Right? Do we want the government to be the lead player? Do we want government to be a catalyst? Do we want the private sector to lead? And candidly, if you look across the world, it's the private sector which is largely leading in this.
Yeah,
Now, the government has started an AI mission, which is right now underway and is moving at a reasonable speed. If they get that mission going in the way that they have planned, I think that itself will be a big boost because it will not only serve like a AI sovereign cloud for the government. It will also serve for a lot of use cases that the government may want to build for its citizens, and it will also build a partnership with the industry to be able to spur this whole AI movement, right?
yeah,
So yeah, in my view, I think what the government has announced is like reasonably good, and this is more for the industry to go to be able to go pick it up.
yeah, definitely. And so one more thing that I found very interesting was the lower TDS on e-commerce payments and also the reduction for the TCS e-commerce operators as well. So I think the finance was also one of the biggest focus. That's always going to be the biggest focus. But how do you see that evolving this year as well? What do you think? Anything from the payment industry, the financial industry? Do you think that will get affected a lot as well?
Look, if you look at the financial services industry, they've been one of the biggest adopters of digitization, IT technology, and the benefits of that have not only gone to the FSI industry, but have also gone to all the consumers, citizens, all of us, right? In the way that we used to bank 10 years back to now has been so different. Uh, I think the whole TDS TCS was more irritants that people had in the past, which have kind of been, mitigated by the government.
Yeah,
But in my view, given the budget, given the way the economy is going, given all the sound bites we get, the whole FSI story is only going to grow.
yeah,
And and the banking sector is one of the largest contributors of IT spending in India.
yeah,
So if you go back in last 5 years, 10 years, they've been like, they've done the most investment on this side. And
yeah,
that story, I don't think so is changing because there's just so much of activity. There is UPI and
yeah.
all stuff that's happened, and that story is not changing.
Yeah, definitely. And so when you talk about UPI, the idea that comes to my head is like our finance minister also said that now we are going from make in India to make for the world as well. So do you think something like the UPI movement can come from India that can go global as well when it comes to the AI sector?
Of
Do you
course,
think that's now finally possible?
I have no doubt that that will happen. It's a matter of time. The question always, and look, here's another thought. Innovation can happen anywhere, anytime. Okay. Now,
Yeah,
when the government announces those tinkering labs, right, in schools, so you get school kids to kind of come in, be curious, start doing stuff. Then you
yeah,
announce all of these fellowships for IITs and ISCs,
yeah,
right? You have all these skilling centers. Uh, Each one of them on their own will have their own relevance, but when they come together, it can be very powerful. So I think an environment is getting created by which India will have not one, but several AI movements going forward. And India's demographics and the skill force is absolutely the best in the world.
Yeah, definitely. I think we also need to produce a lot more STEM graduates as well when it comes to this. And I think this public-private partnership is going to help this a lot as well. So, do you think something like companies like AI for Bharat, I mean, not companies, something like an organization that is building AI, do you think more of them should come out as well when and utilize this funding and everything?
I think there are a lot of folks in the AI space already.
Yeah,
Now, whether it is enough or not is anybody's guess. But I mean, clearly, I can see a lot of activity in the AI world. Small startups doing work, large companies building infrastructure, large enterprise experimenting with AI, dabbling with AI. I think there's lots going on. It's going to be incremental by the day, and there will be a tipping point when people will believe that, look, this is going to disrupt the industry, and that's when it will just break loose.
yeah.
We haven't hit that tipping point yet, in my view. So, how fast it will happen is anybody's guess, but I think India's got a lot of activity going on right now.
Yeah, definitely. And so, do you also feel so when if we talk about GCCs again, I think because that was the topic. Uh, so, do you think a lot of upper management people from all these MNCs will also come into India as well? Because we see that it's mostly looked as a cost center as well when it comes to India companies setting up GCCs in India. So now, do you think that is going to happen now when it comes to tier two cities as well, or even Bangalore, Hyderabad as well?
So, Mohit, I think the GCC started as a cost advantage or as a cost center.
Yeah,
But in the last 7 2 years, it's become a lot more of skills than cost. And a lot of that cost advantage that was there has really diminished. Now, what the tier two cities could do, and which I think will be very good for India, it could add that cost advantage back apart from skills.
okay,
Today, I think for a lot of multinational companies, when they think of India, they think about skills and being able to get the job done in a reasonable amount of time, right?
yeah.
In India is still lower cost than most other parts, but that gap is not as much. But really, these tier two cities can add that gap again.
Yeah, and I think with the announcement of more investing more in the infrastructure of these cities for setting up GCCs, I think that is just going to make it a lot better as well. So I think
Absolutely.
currently there are like 1.9 million professionals who are employed in GCCs. So what are your projections? Do you think that is going to go to 3 million, 4 million this year, or how is it going to fare?
Look, GCCs really serve the world, right? GCCs are not meant for India market.
Yeah,
And I think a lot will depend on the whole geopolitical situation that is there right now. There's fair amount of uncertainty that exists as we speak, right? There are like a whole lot of stuff that's going on.
yeah,
If the global economy does well, especially in the Americas and Europe and some parts of Asia,
yeah,
if those economies do well, then GCCs will go through the roof. But if there are challenges and the growth is not as much, then of course you will not see those kind of numbers. My sense is the next few months people will wait and watch as how things settled, how these economies are growing, how the demand is coming up, and I think basis that you will see how they grow.
yeah, definitely. And that also brings in the part that all the IITs and a lot of STEM graduates are also increasing, and the IIT investments are also going to increase. That is going to, I think, contribute even more when it comes to all these MNCs coming to India. So, and this also helps India as well when it comes to all these GCCs. They'll finally be able to do more R&D as well. When it comes to maybe something like a Volvo is also coming in India as well. So all these companies, I think that's a good part. So, do you think when it comes to AI ML development and these GCCs, do you think that is going to fare like maybe something like a Microsoft or Google when they have employees here? Do you think the contribution to AI ML is going to increase as well?
Of course, without any doubt. I mean, I think, and I won't take names, but I know there are a large number of companies whose core product development happens out of India. Like, for example, at NetApp, our main operating system on tap is largely built out of India,
Yeah,
and that's core engineering work which serves the world. I'm sure there are large number of technology companies who are global leaders in their own rights. A lot of their core engineering work is happening out of India. And even on the AI ML side, I mean, there's fair amount of work. So I don't think so. India is now, or has been for like many years, that India is only doing the low end of the work. India is like doing absolutely what I call cutting edge work, serving the world.
yeah. And also there was this announcement in the budget that there's going to be a fourth AI center of excellence, and that is going to be set up in Patna as well. And so that has been going on for the last 1 year at least. We have three AI center of excellences. So, what are your views on that? How is that upskilling and the R&D going on over there in all these centers of excellence?
I think it's going to be no different than the three that are being talked about. Finally a center of excellence is a platform or a or an infrastructure that gets created for people to come and innovate, do meaningful work, try, experiment, all of that. So in my view, this fourth center is going to be no different from the other three, and it will only help to further the cause of AI. It should spur innovation. It should spur use cases. It should, there'll be more codes written, all the stuff.
Yeah, and if you can also talk a little bit about the startup sector, because that was also something that was very interesting, because all this investment coming up. Do you think there's going to be increase in the number of amount of funding that is going to increase this year as well when it comes to VC funding and investment funds? Do you think they will be more ready to take risks as well?
Look, again, I would, the whole issue on VC funding or the private equity funding in India is also dependent on what the global environment is like. Now,
Okay.
there are times when I think at this point of time, India is very uniquely positioned because India is very stable. India is growing still 6 to 7%, which is far stronger than look many other parts. There's a lot of innovation happening in India. India's got all the positives that one can think about.
Yeah.
And in that environment, I think VCs would definitely love to be in India because there are like enough and more startups, which will do well. So, given the current global climate and where India is at, India should attract fair amount of money. Absolutely no reason. I mean, in my view, this should be the year for India.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that everything in the budget and all the announcements that are happening, it definitely points towards that. So when it comes to AI again and the R&D part, I think I think the regulatory part in India is being focused more right now, even though it was not in the budget as well. But I think when it comes to the development and R&D, I think India is more focused on the regulatory part. What I mean by the time we build something revolutionary that can go for the world, maybe we might have something like the DPDP bill as well that will hinder the growth as well. So, do you think the push or the funds that were announced for the 5 years that are going to come, is that going to be enough to compete in the global market?
Look, firstly, around the whole issue of regulation in AI. Now, when you look at AI in India, it's not in isolation of what happens in India. It's like what happens across the world. Right? We are
Yeah,
in a globally interconnected world. And good or bad, there has been good use of AI, there's been misuse of AI quite a bit.
yeah,
And I think the need globally has been felt around regulation on AI because otherwise it can go in a very different direction. So there is no doubt that there will be regulation across the world. Different countries will do it in their own ways. India is also coming out with the DPDP Act, I think, which is now a law. They're like framing now rules around it.
yeah,
So there is, I mean, DPDP is a reality that is going to exist, and the entire ecosystem in India will need to work around that. Now, I'm sure, like any other act or a rule, it will evolve with time.
yeah,
So, and regulation really should not stop or hinder any investment. So my sense is there will be enough takers for what the government has announced. It like really should not slow it down.
Okay, that makes sense. And so the government also approved, I think, 25,000 crore PLI scheme for electronic manufacturing and batteries and stuff like that. So, how is that going to fare when it comes to this year as well? Are we going to expand on it more? And how do you think, what is your view on that?
I think if you look at last few years, and as we've like read in the press in the past and heard from many stakeholders, India has done reasonably well from an electronic manufacturing standpoint. Right? There've been many global players who've come into India, but I
Yeah.
think we are still scratching the surface on it. And while the progress has been very good, but the potential for it to grow is still very significant.
Yeah.
And there is realignment happening on global supply chain, and that I think is a great opportunity for India, and which is why the government went and announced all of these schemes some time back. So I would only think that in this year and probably the next few years, India will see a lot of uptake on electronic manufacturing and areas associated with that.
Okay. I think this is expected to attract around 40 to 45,000 crore investments because of this PLI scheme. And I think there was also a GST relief on the data center exports as well. So how do you think that is going to add to the economy and the GDP as well in the future?
Okay, so honestly, I kind of missed that GST relief in the budget, but
Okay.
I would assume, look, if you look at the whole GST regime and the way it works, and given that it's a first point of tax and then it's only incremental, eventually if there is relief, then it will add to some advantage, but eventually it's like a incremental tax at every point.
Yeah.
So if your last mile services is getting tagged, then somewhere or the other it'll kind of catch up. But the advantage it will have is that folks who are investing will not need to make that investment of GST upfront, with this relief. But eventually, as the services get consumed, then of course it will add in.
Okay, definitely. And so one of the sectors that this would also affect a lot is I think the aerospace defense. And I think the semiconductor, there was I mean, there was no announcement when it comes to the semiconductor market as well. So were you expecting anything or why was that not there? What is your thought on that?
Look, the semiconductor industry is a very uh, is not only high tech, but it's also a very consolidated industry. That it's not like it's got hundreds of players in that industry. And
Yeah,
the work on the semiconductor side has been there for the last 5 or 6 years. And there's fair amount of progress that's happening. There are players who are making investments or who've made statements that they will be in India. So I don't think so. There was anything new that would have really changed. I mean, I think the government has done what it needs to do. Now it's like, how do all of these players come in? Who all set their fab up? What I mean, all the kind of chips that we start manufacturing, and then it's a matter of time. So
yeah.
really, I think most of the work has already happened on that side.
Okay, yeah, definitely. And I think when it comes to the semiconductor and the mechanical engineering part, I think a lot of the workforce is also missing in India because a lot of people are not going into this mechanical engineering and everything. They're more focused on the IT part, the software part. Do you think that can change this? How can that? I mean, that's very hard to change. People are not interested in going into mechanical engineering and all these hardware parts. So, how can that change? What are your views on that?
So Mohit, it's always a demand supply story, and I'll give you an example on a different nature. That there was a time when there were a lot of civil engineers and not enough jobs. Okay, and then came a time when it was very difficult to find a good civil engineer. Right, there was so much demand but not enough supply. So my sense is, if you look at India's past of the last about 10, 12 years or 15 years, there's been a lot of demand on the IT side. That's where the education institutes all get up. And I think India did a very good job of catering to that demand, building employment, building exports. As the and the semicon industry was all centered outside of India. Now with this thrust, as the demand for skills will come up, there are folks who will probably come back from overseas back to India. There are folks who will kind of skill themselves up. There are colleges which will start building courses around it. So it's not a 1 day or a 1 year story. It's an ecosystem that will build up. And in the short run, people always go acquire skills, right?
Yeah.
If India needs like skills of some people, then either you get skilled people back into India, or you just go and see that who are the folks who have skills and just go acquire. But I guess that ecosystem is already building up, and it will.
Yeah, definitely. So, and one more question that then comes to the GCC part is, do you think this deep tech funds of fund, is it going to help solve the talent management problems for the GCCs in India?
No, the fund of funds, I think, is more around, is really more focused around the startup ecosystem, right?
Okay.
And I mean, GCCs are all very well funded. GCCs are all set up by large multinationals, who are like financially very strong, who are.
Hello.
Supporter, but really uh, won't be the one that will drive the whole GCC conversation.
Okay, yeah. So when it comes to companies that are enabling GCC in India, something like ANSR, and a lot of people have taken up the task that they will help establishing the GCCs. So when it comes to the angel tax that has been removed as well. So do you think that is going to add and help them set up GCCs even faster and more for more companies as well? So I think there was Lalit Ahuja, who's the head of ANSR. He also said that there are going to be one-person GCCs possible in India soon. Do you think that is the case, or how do you see that panning out?
Look, I think the GCC story in India is definitely has been growing over the years, and there is no stopping around it. First, the angel investment tax, I think, is more focused around young startups, people who are building new products or new tech and so on. GCCs, I don't know whether GCCs will really qualify as angel organizations, because these are all large corporations. I mean, all the major GCCs, unless and until there are like uh, MSMEs or smaller companies across the world who start setting up small centers in India. Then in that case, some of that will be helpful. But largely, I think most folks have. I mean, most GCCs that are there are all coming from large corporations and entities across the world.
Yeah, and when it comes to the MSMEs as well, so Nirmala Sitharaman called them as the second engine of the economic growth. So I think they have over 5.7 crore MSMEs,
Yes.
employ 7.5 crore people. So this angel tax as well as you commented, how is that going to benefit even more? The removal of the angel tax.
So MSMEs, and I think she's right that MSMEs are almost like the second engine, very very powerful. I mean, if you look at India's history for not just 5, 10 years, even 40, 50 years, 60 years, MSMEs have been a very important part of India's economic growth story,
Yeah,
and also remain today. Now, MSMEs also form under very different categories. I don't know whether it's fair to club all of them into one MSME, category.
yeah,
I could start a new company today with like four of my friends, and I would be an MSME, and I could be building the next cutting edge AI product, right? Now, which would be very different. Or I could be an MSME with a like building some steel products or iron products, or I could be doing some chemical work or anything else. And all of these will have their own importance. So the story of an angel tax will also work very differently depending on the nature of the firm and how it moves. Uh, it's not like we've not had MSMEs in the last 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. The place I think where the angel tax was probably a bigger challenge was on startups which were growing very rapidly, very fast, where the valuations were going up very significantly over a short period of time. And as they were growing and they were onboarding, the angel tax, I think, was a little bit of a concern. So hopefully that will solve the problem.
Definitely, Puneet. So my last question for you is: is there something that you thought that should have been included in the budget, but it wasn't there, and you think so anything about it?
Um, really, if I think about the budget, the most significant thing is the consumption-driven economy, right? What it's going to lead to. I think the macros in the budget, if you look at it holistically, have been reasonably strong. Now, obviously, there's always things that you may want more and say that could there have been a tax cut, or could the government have done more? Why three missions and why not four? And that is always the case. But I think for me, more than the specifics on AI and the tech side, I think the consumption-driven economy is probably the thing that would really stand out for me.
Okay, definitely. And I think when it comes to the whole budget, I think the most exciting part for me was there's going to be no income tax for people under the 12 lakhs.
Right.
And so yeah, I think a lot of Gen Zs and all these people would also be very happy about that. I think they will finally start taking interest in listening to the budget, and because now this is something that is going to benefit them. So, yeah, Puneet, thank you so much for joining us live, and thank you so much for your time. And it was really insightful talking to you.
Same here,
And
Mohit. Really a pleasure. Thank you.